Hello, my name is Stephen Pearson, and today I'm going to be discussing the life of General Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is known by most as the general of the Confederate Army during the Civil War time. He's looked very highly upon in the South, and he's seen as an amazing leader. But most people don't know the story of Robert E. Lee and what made him to be the man and the general and the leader that he was. Robert was born January 19th, 1807, in Stratford, Virginia, to Henry Lee, a famous officer in the Revolutionary War, and Anne Hill Carter. Robert's father was a very well-known, very well-respected Virginian who fought in the Revolutionary War, and like I said, he was very close and respected by George Washington, the president at the time, and thereafter. He was a very great man and well-respected, but he had a gambling problem, and that affected not only him, but his family. He was actually eventually put into debtor's prison because of his problem, and upon coming out of debtor's prison, he was killed in a riot. This left the Lee family with 6 children and a mother, a widowed Anne Carter. For Robert, this is very difficult, not only losing his father, but being raised without him, and he actually had to take up most of the burden of taking care of his mother and the family, because his mother was slowly slipping into invalidism, and so was unable to do very much. When he was getting older, he went to West Point Academy. This is a very difficult decision for Robert because he had to leave his family behind, everything that he knew, and the person he was, who was a very family-oriented and loyal person, made the decision to leave his family, which needed him, to seek out a future of his own. He went to West Point Academy, and there he practiced the same virtues that he was taught so much about when he was younger, which are self-denial, denying yourself for the good of others. He was very adamant about this in every way he acted at West Point, in his studies, in his actions, in his leadership. And this led to him graduating number 2 in his class with no demerits, something that only 5 other of his classmates did. Upon leaving West Point Academy, he went fairly directly into the military. He fought in the Mexican War and led construction of the Panama Canal, and eventually went into the Civil War, as we all know, and became a great general. And what most people don't realize about Robert was that he was offered a position in the Union Army by Abraham Lincoln and another officer, but because of his intense loyalty to Virginia, his home state, he declined that, even though he was never for the secession in the beginning. He became an officer in the Army in Virginia, and eventually became a general in the Army, a general of the Northern Virginia Army, which is the biggest and most famous of all the armies in the Confederacy, and one that succeeded the most. And he was well known for winning many battles, did a great job, a great leader, well respected by even the generals of the South and of the North and Abraham Lincoln. In the end, we know that they lost the war, even though he still maintained his humility. And in letters going back and forth between Ulysses S. Grant and himself, they were very respectful. They referred to themselves as the other's servant. This is just the dynamic of military generals and ultimately of Robert E. Lee. Very respectful, humble person who is very bold and courageous, and loyal to his state, also to his country. And in the end, this is something that Robert, I believe, generally wanted to pass on, the idea of respectfulness and most of all self-denial. And in some of his last words to a woman who came to bring her child to be blessed, he said, "Teach him to deny himself." And that is something that he spent his whole life focusing on and determined to do, and he did a great job of it, and even now is known as a very respectful and loved man, not just in the South, but all across the country. And here are pictures of Robert E. Lee, one when he is at West Point, and here as a general of the Confederacy, and the flag here represents him being the Confederate general. So thank you very, very much for listening. That's it.